Welcome to our podcast, Untangled Roots. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why am I here? Well, if you have, welcome to the starting point of the best part of your life. Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Cassie. Join us as we share our perspective from our personal journey of untangling from everything that we're not. Let's go, truth seekers. Let's dive in.
Well, and it goes,
oh yeah, okay, here we go. Start. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to episode 5 of Untangled Roots.
I'm Jamie and this is Cass. And in today's episode, we're super excited to kind of dive into, we've received some feedback. We received some feedback from people who are watching to where they're not super clear on what we're doing. Which cracks us up.
It's so bad.
Because, let me tell you, I can't tell you the amount of energy we have spent trying to clarify what we want to do. And the what we want to do has started, which is actually kind of unfolded pretty nicely, is started at like when we met. And so that kind of parallels with what we were going to talk about in this episode, which is how did we meet?
How did we meet? And basically the reason why we wanted to do it now is because following up on the past 2 shame episodes, there was a little bit of an experience when we met that was kind of laced with a little bit of fear, shame combo. And I feel like it'd be nice to kind of just touch on it. It's kind of a vulnerable thing, but just like the main thing is how you view someone. You know how they say you can't judge a book by its cover? It's like, how do you view someone before you actually know who they are, right? Before you know their heart, before you know what they're about. So we're going to kind of untangle that a little bit with you guys and kind of talk about that. But first we wanted to just clarify what we're doing because apparently it wasn't clear. Basically our heart, and you can jump in here.
I will.
Because
you did.
Okay. Our heart for this podcast is honestly to, if we just keep it really simple, is to share perspective on the different trials and troubles and things that we've been through in our lives that have, what would you say? I don't know how to word it.
You were on a roll.
Yeah, I was on a roll and then it just kind of left. Go ahead.
So, how I see it, because I received this feedback. So you received feedback about this separate from your people, and I also received feedback from like my people, if you will. And ultimately how I answered that question when it was brought up to me yesterday was, to me, the journey is like of untangling my roots has been 100% about encouraging people to get closer to having a better relationship to themselves, which whatever that means. Which
self-knowledge,
self-awareness, how to navigate. And we might just be odd ducks in that it's so natural to us, which I think is why we click really well, because most people might not think the way that we think,
right,
or it's so obvious to us or something. This is why I laugh, because it's like we've spent hours and days and months like in our connection of like, you're just like trying to figure out, okay, what do we want to do? Because before I met Cass, I already had this heart to do this. I literally wanted to do something like this. Either I wanted to coach, I wanted to, I guess it took the form of coaching for me, because before we met, I was a certified professional coach, or I had that license, that certification. Right. I just wasn't doing anything with it.
And I also have the background of NLP practitioner, where I actually had a office in person where I would see clients for emotional therapy, emotional release. And so when we came together, it was like that was our heart.
We clicked. We just clicked on that level, which is a very intangible thing to talk about.
Right.
And that's probably why people are like, what are you guys doing? Like, they love us individually, and they love the conversations that they have with us. They love diving in. They feel safe with us. They feel whatever. Like, they love growing with us.
But they're just trying to figure out.
But what is going on? And like, that's so funny, because we have battled that same exact energy of trying to create something. And the fact that we got to land to where it was like, well, let's do a podcast. It felt so clear, so sure. And we were 100% like, yes, this is it. Because when we met over 3 years ago now, I don't know if I'm adding time to it, but when we met over 3 years ago, that this was basically the starting point of what we wanted to do, what we wanted to create. That's my perspective of it. And it's because we shared in the journey of the heart of the journey of how can we grow closer to ourselves ultimately, and whatever that means.
And we love conversation, and we love having like conversations about things that are areas that we want to even expand and grow.
Yeah.
Because every time we have those deeper conversations, something comes from it. Either we learn something new. Like, I've learned so much from her just since starting this. I'm like, wait a minute, like, I didn't know that about you.
I know, and that's what I think is really funny. Like, that's the exciting part. But I think it's ultimately like, what are the tidbits and the takeaways? But would you agree? I guess would you agree in it that it's directly related to learning about how can we be in relationship to ourselves?
Right.
And whatever that means. And whatever that means. Because
that's so broad still.
Not to me, that means that it's like, to me, that it's relationship to self. Okay, I see this. But that's a whole.
Okay, I think a way to sum it up is,
I mean, that defines values.
Right.
That means
identity.
What do you value, your identity,
this is better.
Your self-worth,
Yep.
your self-confidence. If you're not confident, why aren't
Absolutely.
you confident? What aren't you confident in? Are you, like, we both shared our journey with food stuff. Like, I dove deep into
We haven't
perfection
really
of food.
shared about food yet.
I know. So anyway,
But we'll get into that.
so the relationship to my life and how I handle it is basically ultimately what I
And there's something floating.
That's my summary of it.
Yeah. So I feel like, honestly, the reason why our slogan is learning as we go is because that's legitimately what we're doing. We don't claim to have it all figured out. In fact,
I do not.
The previous episode, I kind of got very vulnerable. And so there's going to be times where we may seem like we know a bunch of stuff. And there's going to be times where we really don't. And we just kind of laugh and be silly. So honestly, like we just wanted to create a space that we could have fun and also just kind of bring us to the world, I guess.
Us to the world. And to me, like I said, and that I probably will say every single podcast, it really has been, I found some really valuable lessons along my way. And it's not going to be about cooking necessarily. It's not going to be about gardening. I'm not going to tell you about how I fixed my car. I'm not going to tell you about how I how I rearranged my house, how I redecorated. I don't know, like all these different things that I think the mind wants to like attach to. It's like, no, I'm going to tell you how I learned how to feel more confident in myself because I dealt with
your crap,
my stuff, like because I learned I wanted to dive in because I didn't feel great in my life. So like those are the lessons that I've always wanted to share.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for you to do this with me because this is what I've always wanted to do.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We're really actually grateful for all of our viewers so far because we don't feel so alone in this. Like, I'm really excited.
No, it's fun.
And thank you for the feedback. Like, we love
100%.
feedback. We love comments. We love hearing your story, even if you have something to share. But
yeah, I'm excited to like hear feedback on the feedback that we implemented and see if it's clear.
Right.
Because we need that help. But I think we're good. We ready
so
to
we're going to dive
in.
Yep, we're going to dive. I'm just going to ask Jamie a couple questions.
Great.
So previous to when we officially met, I knew of her through, we have a mutual friend. It's her cousin, but it's, a mutual person. Connector. And so I knew her since I was like in grade school. So I knew like of her cousins, but I didn't like know them personally. So when we first met was at a group event and there was several people there. So it was almost like it wasn't like this one-on-one thing. And I had a couple of my kids with me and you had your relatives with you and stuff. And so it was kind of like this feel like it was more like we've kind of dissected this because it's kind of interesting. So do you want to kind of share, Jamie, like how you initially felt about me?
Yeah. So I think...
And be raw.
Yeah. Well, this is my favorite part. So I recognized a pattern in myself when I did this, but yes, I'll specifically focus on when I met you. So when I first met you, or we first had that encounter, like, because of who I was at that time, or who I am / how I was presenting, like, I had shaved hair. I still dress kind of tomboy, but I still, like, I was dressing tomboy, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing a ball cap or something. Wasn't
just no hair.
Anyway, just no hair, and just like I don't know, the energy that I was in myself, like, something in me, I guess regardless of what I wear, but that was just my mindset. Something in me, when I saw you, I perceived right away that you would judge. This is how I felt. I felt that you would judge me for how I looked. I felt that you would judge me specifically, like, and not want to get to know me. Like, I just felt like this energy just came up in me where we were just like dukes up. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Is that?
And why did you feel, Jamie? Jamie, why did you feel
because
like I would judge you?
I had perceptions of you and your life, of just you. I guess I had perceptions that you were going to be a judgy Christian. Just lay it out. Like, I just had, in my past, like, I had experiences with people, like, of Christian faith, and for some reason, I don't know why
You kind of lumped me in.
I lumped you in with that. I don't know why, other than just preconceived notion, or there was an energy, like, I was just, like, picking up. I don't know. I don't really know what. That's just what my dukes were up. And so,
is there anything that I did or said or anything that, like, made you feel judged, or was it all just, like, perception and fear?
I think it was perception and fear, because when, like, we finally, like, met, it was just like, oh, hi, like,
right,
how are you? And, like, sometimes your eyes did this thing, so I don't know if it perceived your facial expressions.
Yeah, don't do that. You don't do that.
And I was like, so, like, I was just like, I truly was on guard, because, like, I thought that you were gonna judge me because of the way I looked.
Okay.
Which, ironically, I guess that I judged you because of the way you looked.
What was I looking like?
Just in a dress with a bunch of kids. I don't know. Like, you, like, you're cold, like, the way, like, now knowing you, when you go out and about, like, certain cultures, people dress, like, how I don't know, this is really bad, but it's like, how people, like, look. It's like, the dress was more conservative. I don't even know if it's just different types of I guess, a more modest approach to clothing. And I was not, I mean, I was modest, but it's like I have a different modest. Like, I dress like a boy.
Right.
So that's what.
So did it intimidate you? Did it?
It didn't intimidate you, or didn't intimidate me. Maybe I just said that because I wanted to be intimidating.
Oh.
Not consciously, but because I felt like I had to protect myself.
Okay.
I felt like I had to protect myself because of whatever those perceptions would be. Because I had my own spirit. I guess my point is, it's like thinking that you knew your, like, beliefs more than I did. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, if Christian, like, if
because I had a label, or like,
a label, or like a perception.
How did you know that I was a Christian? Like, what?
I don't know if I knew from. It was just a vibe.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just a vibe. I don't think I knew that before, but it was just caked on thick. It was so caked on. I don't know.
Is that a good or bad thing? I mean. It rubbed up against you, regardless of what it was. It 100%
rubbed up against me, because at the time I had always experienced, like I think it rubbed up against, like, I had to protect myself from Christians.
Okay.
Is basically
sad.
Is probably what that was.
Okay. So do you want to continue the journey, or should I stop and share how I felt? Okay, so I'll share. So when I first...
Have I ever heard this?
I don't know if you've ever heard this. I'm going to be raw here. So the word that comes to me when I first met Jamie is curious. Like, I was super curious about this human. Because, like she said, she had shaved head. And she was very much on her computer. And, like, So, like, to be honest, like, I was confused if you were a boy or a girl. Like, if we're just completely real. Like, I was like, I've never been so confused in my life. Like, I'm being so real right now. You know how much I love you.
I don't know if I've ever heard this version.
I know you haven't. So, like, I remember feeling that, like, confused. But I'm like, okay, it's Jamie.
Which is very non-binary.
Well, Jamie is such
I love that.
It's such a name of, like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, like, she's kind of soft-spoken. I'm, like, saying she. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, like, my brain did not know what to do. Because I've never been around any, right? I grew up Christian and whatever. But, like, I still love everyone. Like, it's not like, I don't feel like I was judging you.
That's so interesting. So I interpreted your curiosity as like, oh, she's coming at me or something.
I was just so curious. I was like interested. Like I
felt so judged. That's so interesting.
I was just interested. And to be honest, like this is going to sound so bad. But because you didn't have any hair, I was like, is she recovering from cancer? Like I was like, oh my goodness, like I feel so bad. Like I didn't know this. I didn't know she was ill.
Wow. It was no. I'm very, very grateful that I was not ill.
But like that literally crossed my mind. Like I'm just completely being real with like what kind of went through, and then I was like, oh, like so then there was conversation that happened, and people were referring to you as she. So I was like, okay, she is a girl. Like that's my brain.
After you left, or like during,
no, just during.
Okay.
Yeah. Like someone was like, her and grandma went and did whatever. So I was like, oh, like, okay.
Clicked.
And so I'm like, okay, wow. Like, I can't believe that I've never been so confused about a human.
I've never been so personally triggered.
Wow.
Like feeling like I had to protect myself or defend myself. That's so interesting.
So anyway, that's kind of where it left. But I did not leave there. I did feel, maybe I was sensing, because I sense things, so maybe I was sensing your on-guardness. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like that, just that little abrasiveness.
Yeah, there was some,
I didn't personally feel any personal judgments about your life. Yeah. Like I actually grew up dressing like a tomboy, and like that was actually my preferred clothing, and I probably actually liked your style, to be honest. Like I like grew up wearing Carhartts and camo, and I was kind of more of a redneck, but I didn't have the style. But anyway, so fast forward to COVID.
Well, this is kind of where I feel like this is where my like part really steps in, because it was fast forward. Was that 3? I don't.
A few years.
It was a few years, and I'm in my neck of the realm of this universe. I was in New Mexico at that time, after the event. So this is a few years after the event where that whole situation was triggered and happened. I was introduced to oils, ironically. So this isn't about oils, but I was introduced to oils through my cousin and the family who we were talking about, and up until that point, I was looking for some type of business, I guess. I was looking for products that I trusted, because I wanted to do affiliate marketing. If I'm being completely honest, everything that I was learning and teaching myself up until that point was, my background is in digital marketing, websites, and like all that stuff. And I've loved to learn those tools, and I've always wanted to have a heart of like a product that I could trust to share. And that was what lined up at COVID. And I can't tell you how much energy I had behind learning all of that stuff. Like it was like a combination for me of like my heart for coaching, and then mixing it in with like my degrees, and like learning how can I make this world better with the information that I know. And I was just curious. I was like, oh, like during that time, like I got introduced to oils officially, and I personally started to use them. And I was like, oh, the fact that I'm personally using them, this is kind of a sign that I like them or I value them, which I don't use a lot of personal products. Actually, I don't. still to this day do not really use products, and that's just been that was my life. So the fact that I found something that I really liked, that's what I wanted to hold on to. And this isn't about the oils, but my point is my heart was really, really invested in this. And I asked my cousin, I was like, hey, like, I'm just curious, what does the business side of this look like? Because I kind of knew that it was a thing, and I was like, what does this look like? And she was like, oh yeah, like, no problem, like, we can definitely, she was like, you have a couple of different options of who you can talk to. and I was like, she was like, this person or Cassie. And I was like,
she's like, oh snap, that girl.
I was like, okay. And I remember that feeling of judgment came up in me, and I was like, I'm gonna face this. And I was like, I want to talk to Cassie. And that ultimately was my intention. I was like, my intention was to face this energy of judgment, and I'm going to talk to this person, and I want this person to know my heart. I don't want this person to not try to know me just because of how I look, and I want to know them regardless of how they look. Like, I want to know her. I want to know that this person, that I can love this person and have a great conversation with this person. Like, that was my like, it was such a potent intention to face that in me, and to be, basically, I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to stop at that judgment. I wanted to be able to hold someone else no matter what their beliefs are.
Right.
Like, that's whatever I perceive their beliefs to be, but like this perception. So anyway, so that was my intention. I actually had nothing to do with the business at that point. It was purely getting through the energy of that trigger, facing that fear. That's why I did it.
Right. So she reaches out via text. Can we set up?
Well, we were on a group text, and my cousin connects us and is like, hey, like, let's, Jamie has some questions. Are you open to meeting?
Yeah. So we set up a Zoom. Yeah. And the funny thing is like, I was like, I had a new baby, and I was like, I had a hard time like finding time to actually do this Zoom call without a baby interrupting. So I'm like, okay. And it just so happened that I actually forgot about our meeting.
Of course you did. Well, because it was like 3 weeks out.
Right.
It was like a long time. Like,
and so she texted me to confirm, and I was like, oh, snap, crackle, pop. I'm literally driving. And I'm like, absolutely, no problem. That's me, on the fly.
Oh, man.
So I literally pull over at this random business, okay? Good thing it wasn't raining. And I pull over on the side of the road, and my baby's taking a nap in the car. And I literally get out, and I sit on the grass on the side of the road and have this call with her. And literally, it was actually a call. It was a phone call because we couldn't get Zoom to work with someone.
We eventually FaceTime.
Okay.
But what were your thoughts about meeting me? Did you have any?
When we first did there?
No, I'm saying like before. You're like, yeah, like I'll talk to you about the business. Did you have any? Do you remember anything?
I was excited. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel anything that she's saying. Like, I didn't feel I was like, oh, cool. Like, neat. Like, I thought it was cool because I love talking to people about that kind of thing, and just kind of seeing what people are wanting to do, and it just really lights me up. And so we get on the phone, and our conversation, how long do you think we talked?
It was like a good 2.5 hours probably.
Was it really?
I think it was definitely closer to 2 hours, maybe a little bit more.
During this conversation, my baby woke up. I had to bring her outside with me, and like, I was just trying to talk while I had her, but like, we talked about Young Living oils for maybe
the last like 30 seconds of the call.
maybe
the last like minute.
Yeah. So we just dove in and started talking and like really connected on some really deep levels of whatever. She was super interested in the healing that I was doing, like that I was helping people with. Mm-hmm. And she was super curious about it. She was asking me questions about it. And that's kind of like how it started. And like, I just geek out on that kind of thing.
Same.
And
Same.
so it's just like the time just passes when and I'm like, oh wow, like we just talked about this. Whoa, like what is happening?
Just like sharing, like, so like we literally just dove into like, so why are we at this call? Why are you open to talking to me? Like, what about this oils bit? Like, whatever about the like healing pack.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's how it started. And then we barely, then we just kept talking and like building rapport, I guess. And, you actually came on as a client.
Yeah.
Of mine.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to go into that a whole lot, but basically I kind of helped her start unwinding and unraveling some different roots, some bigger roots that were kind of keeping her stuck. And
yeah,
to where you could actually feel freedom to start processing things.
Yeah. And I would say that you were always curious about me because I know digital because of my technology or like operation side. Is that accurate? Do you think to a degree of like, oh, like, do you want to do something? Did you ever think of like...
No.
You didn't?
No.
Then what did you mean when you said you wanted to partner up?
Like at the beginning?
Yeah, like you were like, I've always wanted to like partner up with someone.
Oh, just somebody that wanted to run with me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I didn't know, really I didn't see clearly like what we'd be doing.
Yeah.
I just saw like someone's equally as motivated or like pumped about the message of wellness.
Yeah.
And I just wanted someone to, I love team. I love working with people. I'm not the type of personality that likes, that's why we're doing a podcast together, because I don't like talking to myself.
I don't either. I don't like doing it by myself, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, like I've always wanted to do this, but I don't think I've ever wanted to do it by myself.
Right.
But anyway. Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of like, honestly, how...
Yeah. And I have one more, that is, and I have one more thing, like the depth of that, like of why I feel this is valuable to share. Okay. So to summarize why I feel this is valuable to bring up or to talk about is because in college, I remember starting to build the habit of facing fear. And I don't remember who I learned that from. I don't remember. I think in the introduction podcast, I started to answer that someone, the person I was in a relationship with said, I don't want to be responsible for your happiness. And that is what completely triggered me into going down the rabbit hole on Google of like, how do I be responsible for my own happiness? And I'm sure that along the way I opened up a whole bunch of tunnels, and facing fear is definitely one of them. And so I was like, oh, I was like, face your fear. So that's basically what I was doing. Other than the kind of parallels to what I consciously chose to face the yuck in me that I felt, or the energy in me that I felt when it comes to someone with a different belief system, or I perceived someone had a different belief system than I did. And to a large degree, some of our belief systems they run parallel, but we do still have different perspectives that help craft each other. But I'm saying in that moment, I didn't want to be the person who stops at fear. I didn't want to be that person who just lets that type of energy come in and dictate how I show up, how someone knows me. Because I'm like, I'm going to share this. I'm going to share my heart with this person, and they're going to get to have the chance to receive it or not. But it's not going to be because I didn't share it. And so that's basically like the heart message that I would really want to encourage people to actually face those energies in yourself and face those energies in your life, because you're gonna get clarity on the other side of it. And I think that that's when people say, like, it was an example of like everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yep.
I think that is a prime example of, I didn't know how our connection was gonna go. I mean, it's obviously turned out great on the other side, but I didn't know how you were gonna receive, but I just knew that I was gonna like dive in and face that judgment.
When you faced it on our first call, were you like, oh?
It was fun. I actually had the thought that I wonder if because I didn't see you, because I think we might have started off the phone call on phone only.
Yeah.
And then we might have, like, I think after we got comfortable, you turned on your FaceTime. But I think maybe not seeing you helped my brain to where I was just sitting there and I was just like, yeah, so this is me. And I started to share. I was like, so I have a really big heart for trying to learn how to be a better person, how to learn about all things personal development. I love it. I geek out on it, like type of thing. Like I've loved it for, at that time it was over 7, I don't even know, it was like over 5 years for sure of like digging in deep and working with counselors or therapists or my own studies, whatever that may be. And so I think me sharing that and like I could tell that it like lit you up too, or just fed, like our connection just was growing and fed from there, from those topics, which is what was amazing. And so if I stopped at that fear, I would have never been able to explore the part of myself that I knew that I could show up no matter how someone may treat me, that I'll show up with integrity in myself, is basically what is what that did for me. And that's just one example of one time. Like there's many times like in group settings, I don't like group talk. Like I do like group talks, but up until now, I'm learning to be more expressive or own my opinion in a group setting. And so like in college, there would be like speakers or whatever, and be like, does anyone have questions? And I remember I'd be like, I just got this like feeling in my gut, and it was just like, I got super flushed. And I was like, that was my cue of when I knew that I had to say something, or I knew I had to speak. So I just got, so anyway, that's just another example. But that's, in summary, that's my perspective of how we met
and how you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Would you say that I'm judgmental?
No, you're not judgmental.
Isn't that interesting though? Because like I feel like I put an effort, and I know as humans we judge.
Yeah,
but I really do put a conscious effort, and when I feel myself self-judging someone, I really like to be like, I didn't like how that felt. In knowing you, I can tell that this is what I feel like I've learned, is that like, and maybe it's clashed up with like, because my upbringing and my culture or whatever, and your upbringing and your culture, like it has crafted our perspectives, which is really interesting. So it's almost like we try to grow we try to grow beyond the limitations, if there are any, of like, if it doesn't make sense for us or whatever, if there's something that pops up. And I think that that's ultimately your heart, is to face anything that like limits. You see what I mean? Like, and I think that's a really interesting perspective of like being open-minded for other people's perspectives. Because I think that that's where judgment can come in and be like an ultimate barrier, when it's really just two people trying to learn and grow from their circumstances in whatever they are used to operating in. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that sums it up for today. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day whenever you're watching this, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.